Good evening. Pascal Janssen was a youth coach at PSV Eindhoven. Brad Sims was an executive with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kevin O'Toole was a junior at Montclair High School here in the great Big Jers of Jersey. That was March 8th, 2015. Why are we talking about that? It's the 10th anniversary celebration coming up this Saturday for New York City. We've got that and a whole lot more, including an exclusive one-on-one with the president of the club, Brad Sims.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz. We were at the Citrus Bowl, March 8th, 2015. We know where we were. We were calling the game, New York City against Orlando City. And as Brad Sims will tell us, we're going to go to that interview in our Kicking It Around segment. MLS deserves a lot of credit for scheduling so that the New York City could celebrate both this weekend with Orlando City, which was the very first match. Both of them were expansion sides back in 2015. And then a week from this Saturday, Roberto, when New York City plays at home again against New England, and their home opener as a franchise was March 15th against New England, 2015. So wonderful stuff. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Not much has changed since I saw you earlier this afternoon over at
That's good.
the City Football Academy, CFA, as I like to call it. So
Yeah.
All is well.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
sort of ready for Saturday. Not totally, but I'll be ready for broadcast time.
I'm not ready yet. I have to do a lot more homework on Orlando. I've done a little, but I need to do a lot more. They've had an odd start to the season, right? They get smashed by Philadelphia, and then they win handily at home against Atlanta, who everybody's all raving about, and their big $16 billion front line, couldn't score a goal against Orlando City. They gave up 4 in the first week. So there you go. I don't know how you look at everything just yet, but it's still early, right? And I'm sure that's the way New York City is looking at it too. Just 1 point through 2 matches. And certainly we'll talk about that, but let's do the 10th anniversary first.
Let's do that.
It was funny listening to Kevin O'Toole describe how he didn't watch the game. He didn't really pay too much attention to New York City until the 2021 season when they won MLS Cup. And actually, that's when he started focusing on their games, it sounded like, later on that year. And he watched the game at Portland and watched some of the playoff games. Now, granted, he's in the Red Bulls Academy, so I can't blame him for not focusing on New York City.
We didn't ask him what his reaction was to the fact that New York City was winning these games and then won the cup. And he, while being a member of the Red Bulls, who have not won a cup, I wonder what he was feeling at the time. We should have asked him that.
Well, maybe I'll request him for an interview next week and see what he says. One thing I did learn about Kevin is that during the off season, while we were in LA, he just saw him in the restaurant area, and he pointed. He goes, this summer I went over here. And it was like sort of a broadcast school. I can't remember what it was called, but he said Dax McCarty was there, and you see Dax now doing a lot of great stuff for Apple and also Sirius XM-FC. And so Kevin O'Toole, it sounds like he one day would like to take our jobs. So
he's not going to take mine. I'm not too concerned, by the way.
Well, you don't know that he doesn't speak Spanish. Maybe he speaks Spanish.
I know that he doesn't speak Spanish. He's not going to speak it well enough by the time he retires. He's 26.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. Maybe by the time he retires, I'm retiring.
All right.
If I'm still around. So
I'll give you
that going on too. So,
well, the one thing we remember, Roberto, that it was an exciting day in Orlando. Citrus Bowl held over 60,000 for this game. Orange everywhere we went, right? Everywhere you walked. Purple, excuse me. Purple,
yes.
Not orange, purple. And it was pretty cool because they had really, at least for that day, they'd won over the community. But guess who scored the first goal? Of course, it'll always be the answer to this trivia question. Let's play that, Shane.
Oh, Diskerud. Mixed Diskerud with the curler, and he has put it in. What a moment for NYCFC. What a moment for Mixed Diskerud.
That was his moment, all right.
Yes, it was.
I don't know if we can point to too many others, but hey, he's got that. And what a wonderful goal. And we know Kaká tied it up later on a free kick pretty late in the game.
I remember him after the game. We were down in the locker room. I believe you were down there as well. Down in the locker room, sitting alone with a game ball and just having it on his lap. And just thinking about the moment that, I mean, remember, he was like one of the big signings for New York City FC. I mean, we talked about, obviously, there's David Villa, who wound up scoring the first goal in Yankee Stadium history. And then, obviously, you had Pirlo and Lampard that wound up coming in the summer. And those are the guys we always talk about. But like the big, Mixed Diskerud was one of the big signings of the club because he was pretty much a big deal at the time that New York City signed him. He was with the U.S. national team, and he was like the American player that they had brought in at that time.
Yeah, there was one point he played for the national team while he was with New York City, and he scored a huge goal. Was it against Germany? It was a 2-0 win against a big country that we don't usually have success. It was a friendly match. I'm trying to see if he's still active. So that Ammonia team, Omonia, is a Greek side. So he's on the Greek island, playing soccer. That seems to be where his professional career ended. But he wrote a poem significant to his first goal and that first game. So Shane, throw up the poem here. And I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but a decade gone, we took Orlando on. In second half, I was gifted the ball that led to our loss of influence or innocence and virtue too. Goosebumps erupted for me. But leave it to Mixed Diskerud to write a poem, and then nice little artwork there in the corner too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they almost got away with a win, but then a Kaká free kick that hit off the wall and got by Josh Saunders, and they tied it in the last minute in stoppage time, actually.
So that's what we're celebrating Saturday. And interestingly enough, in the opening two games, which were on the road at Miami, at LAFC, and as we heard today from Pascal Janssen, the head coach, 7,000 miles traveled by New York City in the opening two games total, which apparently is number one in MLS as far as travel miles, and 2 times more than whoever finished second in that travel race. But both games had similar endings in that a late conceded goal ended up in a draw at Miami. We spoke about that a lot last week. Mm-hmm. And now the late goal for LAFC. And it was Ryan Hollingshead who had come in as a second half substitute. And just unfortunate. And Boanga, he got a clean cross off, which he hadn't that often during that match. New York City did a pretty good job against Boanga. And so it ends up 1-0. Roberto, let's discuss these first two games, but this most recent one after we hear from Pascal Janssen. So this is from my pregame show, the interview, and you were in the room as well. And we brought up game management again, which is what he referred to after the Miami game, where the young player, the team as a whole needs to manage the game better. And in this particular instance, he also said to never turn off. And he referred to something that happened in training this week, which was a nice reinforcement for him and the coaching staff. So here's Pascal today.
A similar moment on Tuesday in training. Training was at top level on Tuesday. But there was one moment in a particular game where one of our guys also wasn't alert enough. And he had a almost perfect training session on Tuesday. But there was one moment similar to the game in LA, because I think it was the second or the third shot on target for LA, and they got the goal at a late stage in the game. But if you go back to that moment, we were in attack. We had a some kind of chance, and the goalkeeper started to play again, and we shut down. We shut off just one moment, and that's something that a young team also has to realize from a game management perspective, that cannot happen. You can be outplayed. You can lose a match when the opponent is better, but losing points or dropping points with these type of goals and these type of moments is something that we have to get out of our system as soon as possible.
So that's a real teaching moment for you too. You saw it on film, and then it kind of rears its head in training, and it's like
Yeah,
right.
That helps because you can refer to that moment on Saturday, which helps the process for the guys to understand the game even better.
So, Glenn, let me ask you a question before you even start.
Yeah.
Where is the moment that they turned off?
Well, after Alonso Martinez scuffed the shot, I thought initially on commentary that it was deflected or partially blocked, but no, he completely scuffed it. And that's the moment right there. And if you look at his reaction, you look at his body language and reaction, it's like, like he's kind of upset with himself that he didn't hit it more cleanly. And I think the people around him reacted in a very similar fashion. So that's what I would say.
You think it was there? Okay. I mean, you look at the goal, and a couple of things happen, right? Normally, they had two people defending against Bouanga.
Right.
And in this case, they only had one. And so he was able to get a cross off. Now, the New York deals with it in the first place, but then Burke Risa with a really weak clearance. And, maybe the ball surprises him as the ball is bouncing around there. So I'm not blaming him. But it is a weak clear, and he hits it right to Hollingshead, who is pretty good. He shoots pretty well. He's got a lot of goals, and he buried that one.
He's got 9 goals down his career as a fullback, which is pretty good. And I think the part of the Bouanga only being isolated one of the few times, and you're right, it was always a second offender. But if you review that clip again, you see there's 5 or 6 attacking, and they kind of all freeze at the same time. So who's been double teaming Bouanga? It's been the weaker. It's been the strong side winger. It was often Hannes Wolf, who was not in the game at this time. It was Julian Fernandez, who I thought put in a good defensive shift, but they got caught at that moment, and I'm sure that's what was pointed out. That would be my estimation, but there it is.
So you think it wasn't only Alonso, but like the forward line sort of froze for a moment, thinking, we should have made, instead of like, all right, we got to get back defensively, and then all of a sudden it exposed them in the back.
Or there's got to be some sort of rotation, because you can't expect Fernandez to get back there maybe that quickly. He's the one that served it to Martinez kind of square across the top of the area. So, a midfielder might have to get over there. So I just think they were caught in that moment. But I mean, just from a coaching standpoint, to have a similar moment occur in training to reinforce it, it's beautiful. It's almost like one of those things where you almost I would do this sometimes. I would tell a player, hey, do this wrong so that I can put an emphasis on it, because this is what we did wrong last week. And I'm not saying that Pascal set up whoever the person was that made the error, but it's really
could have been
good timer. Now the other thing, Roberto, about this game and the first game, and to me this is one that's fairly easy to diagnose, but you'll hear Pascal Janssen and he'll get more into it. But Maxi Morales started at the 10, the playmaker, the all-time assist leader in both games. But he could only go a certain amount of minutes in both games. I think it was 78 in the first and only an hour in the LAFC game. Replaced both times by Andres Pereira, who interestingly is not available, and that will be part of what this clip with Pascal Janssen will encounter. But let's hear Pascal's take on how the team just seemed to lose its grip both times in these last 2 games with Maxi out of there. You agree with the assessment, but it seems like when he had to leave both games and Andres Pereira came in for him, some of that was lost, maybe even the identity of what you were trying to do at those points.
It's a combination of both. We need to make sure that Maxi stays available for each and every game. So that's one topic that we have in our minds always. On the other hand, Andres Pereira is a type of player that can add a few things from this position, which Maxi unfortunately is not capable yourself doing anymore. And that's going over your opponent and making sure you have the support going into the striker's position or even behind the defensive line of the opponent. And Andreas is a guy that has that capacity to do that. Those were things on my mind in order to create even more in possession than only the qualities that Maxi can add. But there's a sense of truth in what you're saying now, because Maxi is a very big part of our midfield play and our midfield structure. As I said, we have more players that can do other things and add things to the team.
With Pereira down injured for this match against Orlando City, can you share what kinds of things you're considering in the event Maxi can't go 90?
Yeah, we have Johnny Shore, of course, who can be added to midfield. That, however, changes our shape if Maxi weren't able to continue. We have Hannes Wolf, who has played in number 10 position as well. We can also adapt to going to two strikers in the center part of the pitch with Munsev and Alonso. So there's a few things that we can do. And don't forget Maximo Carrizo, who is also an option as an offensive midfield player.
And I know you saw this. If Maximo Carrizo makes his debut in either this game or any of the next 10 now, he would become the youngest player to take the field for New York City FC. Just turned 17 in late February, I think. Might have been February 28th. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that's 4 options, Roberto. 4 options if Maxi goes down. I like the twin striker. I like the twin striker thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that could wind up working. They did play together in the game against LAFC. They didn't play as a twin striker, though. Alonso Martinez was a striker, and Bakrar was out on the left wing, which is sort of interesting considering the fact that Bakrar was brought in as a number 9 and only as a number 9, and Alonso Martinez was brought in as a wing.
Well, one, I didn't, there's one other, and I think we talked about this play. There's one other comment from Pascal, which I'm not going to run, where he talks about the emphasis this week was getting more numbers in the area. But once you get in the area, to organize the box a little better. Do you remember the ball that Jason Hack just whipped in across the top of the 6-yard line? I mean, it was a brilliant ball. Well, as Pascal described it, and I didn't see it this way initially, said there were four of his teammates were all at the top of the box and nobody got to the back post. Nobody's running first post. And that's part of box organization. You almost form a little triangle in there and then leave somebody at the top of the box. And then you have 4 areas covered. And that didn't happen. So that was another thing to review. And, these things sometimes seem rudimentary, but in the heat of the battle, in the moment, players at every level have to be reminded of these things. So, but it's 3 points lost in these first 2 games, Roberto. Let's face it. You got the win against Miami, up a player, and then you had this one knotted up again, in a game that, you look at statistically, it was pretty dead even,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then they should have been able to hold on for a tie against LAFC. There's no doubt that they should have. They turned off for a second, and that turned out to be hurtful. I want to go back to the schedule a little bit because we talked about the fact that, New York City has a 3-hour flight and a 5.5-hour flight to LA in their first 2 games. But if you look at the rest of the schedule, okay, they don't have anything close to that anymore. Now, July is going to be crazy because after playing Toronto at home on July 3rd, they play Charlotte on the 12th on the road, Orlando on the 16th. So, they're going to fly Charlotte and then straight to Orlando. Then on the 19th, they play in Kansas City. So you presume that they're going to go straight to Kansas City there as well. Pack a big suitcase there, Glenn. And then they come home, and then they fly
everything
out
in my
again.
carry-on. You just put in the challenge. I'm going carry-on for all this, but go ahead.
Oh God, I'm bringing nose pliers and anyway, and then they fly out to Dallas. Those are the longest trips. The trip to Sporting Kansas City and to Dallas. Those are the 2 longest trips that New York City has. The rest of the way, and I guess from Orlando to Kansas City is going to be long, but then they're going to come home and then go to Dallas. I doubt very much that they're going to go, it's a Saturday and then a Friday. The Dallas game's on a Friday.
Well, whatever. So, whatever the travel is in that's the dog days of summer, the humidity. You're going to Dallas, which is awful.
Oh, that's going to be
Kansas
horrific.
City. Kansas City's an oven. Orlando is maybe a worse oven. And then Charlotte, who knows, on July the 12th. But
it's going to be an oven.
But it's going to be a key. That's how critical a stretch could that be? 4 consecutive games on the road, all in those kind of conditions. And whether you're traveling far or near, a lot of games in a short period of time. So you've got that. And you know that you've got Leagues Cup. Now, that hasn't been announced yet, but Leagues Cup is going to start somewhere in there. It starts in July. So somewhere in there is going to be another midweek game potentially. So it's nuts, man.
Oh, well, I got to find the Leagues Cup schedule now because it's not.
Maybe it said no. It's July 29th. So I'm wrong. It is July, but it's going to be towards the end. So it'll be midweek after the Dallas game. So here it is: 7-12 at Charlotte, July 16th at Orlando, July 19th at Kansas City, July 25th at Dallas, and then home to Puebla on the 29th.
And that's going to be at Sports Illustrated Stadium. And then the only game that's in Yankee Stadium is going to be against Toluca.
Okay. And
so that's going to be, but by the way, the largest percentage of Mexicans in the New York metropolitan area come from Puebla. So there might be a sizable crowd for that game, and not in favor of New York City, because we know the New York City fans, a lot of them, the supporters, I wish they'd get over this, aren't going to go out to maybe now that they changed the name and it's no longer Red Bull Arena and it's Sports Illustrated Stadium, maybe they'll stop this stupid boycott. They're getting a stadium built. They already told us the pillars are in the ground. It's stopping.
5 weeks ahead of schedule, Brad Sims said today. That's going to be on our a little bit later on in our live pod here, NYCFC Views Live. We got about 15 minutes with Brad Sims today, and some interesting stuff in there, and that was one of them. So I'm kind of sharing one of the things we learned. They're 5 weeks ahead of schedule. So, and he said he looks at it every week to see where they're at. So it's going to be an arduous process, and it's all about starting at home as early as you can in 2027.
Right. So here's the thing. I mean, right. So what we were told back in, I don't know, I guess when the stadium, they announced the opening, not the announce, but, we went to the groundbreaking, was that because of all the delays and everything, and there was like a month and a half of delays, that, maybe the March 2027 opening day might have been a little bit in danger and all that, but they're 5 weeks ahead. So now we're talking about stadium might be, if they can continue this and not fall behind, and you pray to the weather gods that they cooperate and everything else, then maybe the stadium will be ready for February in 2027.
Well, but New York City's on the road for the first 2 games every year.
Not necessarily. No, if they have their stadium, not necessarily. Part of the reason why they're on the road.
I'm saying that every year in existence they have been.
Yes, we know that.
Well,
part of the reason is that
we know that. You think everybody listening knows that? We know that. Maybe we know that, but I'm sharing the information as an informational podcast.
Well, good. Can I share the reason why they're on the road most of the
time? You
2
don't
weeks?
have to do that. You don't have to do that.
But I want to now.
No, don't. Please don't.
I'm going to anyway.
Please don't. City Field, I'm going to steal it. I'm going to steal it. City Field, Yankee Stadium don't always have their plumbing on, and the weather. 2 things,
good.
And that's right. All right, good.
Thank you. I got the information. I don't care if you said it or not. I don't care. The information.
Look at you.
You need to take credit. Go right ahead.
All right, I'll provide all the scoops on this podcast. So, Orlando City, just a couple. Both of us need to study a little bit more. But we do know that this will be. Did you say 12? No, 8 draws, 7 wins for Orlando City, 9 wins for New York City FC. So it's been a fairly even regular season series. 43 goals for New York City, 29 for Orlando City. Last year, a 1-1 draw in Orlando, 4-2 victory for New York City over Orlando City, who are, to me, one of the enigmas in the league. And I'm an Oscar Pereira fan, but I think they're a very difficult team to figure out. And let's face it, they won a U.S. Open Cup along the way under Oscar. But they they just don't seem to get through to where they need to in order to come close to winning an MLS Cup. And where did they make it last year? They get to was it conference semis or finals? Where did they lose to Red Bulls at the conference finals? Didn't they? I think it was conference finals last year.
I think they might have. I
maybe I should give them more credit. See how much we haven't studied. Yeah,
exactly. The last time that New York City actually lost to Orlando, okay, was in August of 2022. They lost 2-1 in Orlando. So since then, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row where they had at least a tie, if not a win.
All right. Well,
three wins and 2 ties.
It hasn't gone so well in the outside of regular season matches. So twice, PKs in 2020 for in the MLS Cup playoffs, the COVID year, and that's the Rodrigo Schlegel saving Goody Tararenton's penalty to put Orlando City through, and then the U.S. Open Cup also went to penalties, and that was an S show because the lack of control by the authorities down there at whatever it was called, Exploria Stadium at the time, I think, that it was really where the supporters, like the referees, put it in the goal.
It was a funny
where
scene.
It would be more fair, and then everybody from Orlando ran from the. And they weren't supposed to get in.
I don't think it was more. New York City won the coin toss to decide where they wanted to hold the penalty kicks, and they said we're going to hold it on the empty end. And then all the supporters ran around from the supporters section all the way to the empty end, and it was no longer the empty end, and they wound up losing again.
I'm trying to just confirm what the heck happened in the playoffs. So they lost to the Red Bulls in the conference finals 1-0. Who scored a goal for the Red Bulls? But it seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't. Andres Reyes. And then he ended up not playing in the final, and now he ended up not being on the Red Bulls anymore. So
there's that.
There you go. Yeah. So that's
and they lost, by the way, that loss was at home.
Yeah.
They lost that game at home.
Well, the Red Bulls had it going at that point, and
they did.
Inter
enclosed stadium, and they sold it out too, 25,046.
All right, so that's kind of setting the scene for this weekend slightly, and Maddie and I will have our pregame live at 6:45, and then Roberto Spanish, myself on the English side of the live commentary will be on at 7:15 Eastern time. How about Ty Baribo? 5 goals through 2 matches. I mean, my goodness. 4th player in league history to have 5 goals through his first 2 matches. Can you name the others?
No.
This is one I forget. Chicharito for the Galaxy.
For LA.
21. Yeah, for 21. Ayo Akinola in 2020 for Toronto. And Brian Ching, 2006 for Houston Dynamo.
Love Brian Ching.
And this is interesting. Ty Baribo has more goals through 2 games than 23 of the 30 MLS teams, which includes New York City FC. So, I mean, it's just 2 games. But,
yeah,
boy, that's wild. Now, Segovia, who scored the game winner against it felt like the game winner. It was the game tying goal at Inter Miami against New York City. He got his first MLS start, 2 goals and 1 assist over the Dynamo. He's a hell of a player. So they lost Diego Gomez in a good way. They sold him to Brighton and Hove. And Segovia is he's going to be a kid that lasts maybe a year or 2. He is a really
he's looked really good. And by the way, Messi didn't play in that game, and they didn't seem to miss him too much. They scored 4 goals. They did pretty well.
They did, and Segovia
Houston doesn't look that good. I feel bad for Ben Olsen. But they lost a lot of players. They lost Hector Herrera. They lost Carrasquilla. I mean, those are 2 pretty important players for that team. I hope that they get a chance to, spend some money and replace them. The window's open until April. So,
yeah. San Jose, they've opened the season with 2 wins for only the third time in club history, and the first since 2017 with Bruce Arena on board. They host Minnesota Saturday. Wilfred Zaha, a goal and an assist for Charlotte, 2-0 over Atlantis. That was his first start, his first appearance for them. And CONCACAF
Not a bad start.
Not at all. CONCACAF Champions Cup, maybe New York City could feel a little bit better about the 1-0 loss at LAFC because Crew got crunched 3-0 and Bowango was running like a wild man. And yeah, so that's of note there. Olivier Giroud did not play at all. And attendance at BMO, it was over 22,000 for our game, 7,285.
Yeah, well, wasn't a lot of fans there. That's sad.
Well, these midweek CCC games are not drawing particularly
Trust me, if there were
well.
Mexican fan, if there was a Mexican team, they would have sold it out. I mean, it looked like they had a really good crowd for the Seattle game for when they played Cruz Azul.
Yeah,
let me see if I can find what the crowd was.
Well, I remember here it's over 25,000. I'm almost sure that
sounded really loud, and there was a lot of Cruz Azul fans there too. So that's a pretty good crowd. Speaking of crowds, they're expecting a pretty big crowd for the New York City game. They're expecting over 24,000, and tickets, I was looking on secondary market, are in the low 20s. So if people want to get their tickets now and be part of a very festive atmosphere at Yankee Stadium on Saturday night, go to Ticketmaster and get your tickets. So, but it also there's a comment here. Can you bring this forward because this is important? So Izzy's telling me that he's excited for the home opener, but there won't be a tifo being displayed in the supporter section. I was reading something about this in Reddit, and the thing is that because of the bad behavior of some of the members, not everybody, but just some of the members of the supporters, New York City has been sort of warning them that there could be loss of tifo, loss of drums, loss of different things, and that somehow communication got skewed between the team and the supporters, and they didn't get in touch with each other, and basically the supporters ran out of time before they can start building a tifo, which obviously takes a long, long time. And so therefore there will be no tifo at Yankee Stadium as there customarily is every opening game.
I hear they're going to hold up those cards that have with your face on them. That everybody's going to hold one up, and
it's not Halloween. You don't do that.
Just a couple of other things. That's disappointing. That's for sure. So you mentioned Carrasquilla, who plays for Pumas now, and he got an assist the other night in a 2-0 win over Alajuelense of Costa Rica.
That's
and
not bad. Well done.
But the big news here is we've got a former Mexican international, but even more importantly, a former New York City FC assistant on the 2021 MLS Cup champions. Efrain Juarez that was his second game in charge, and he gets the win. So nice for him. Nice for him.
And he is absolutely adored in Pumas. He, part of his career in Mexico was there, and he's a Puma from the heart. So
that's wonderful.
I'm really happy that he's there. I hope he does well. He's already under fire for something that he said in the dressing room, some motivational speech that he had, and somebody took it out of context, and now they're making a big deal about this. God, maybe we need that here in the States. Maybe I'm looking at this all wrong.
I think
we need this, but because it's like all over the damn place.
Well, it's going to be less pressure than Nacional. Champions League, PSG Liverpool. This was amazing. You talk about a smash and grab. Look at the statistics of this game, Roberto, of PSG Liverpool. It's now. Does anybody know the final? Yeah, Liverpool wins the match 1-0. Look at the passes completed. I don't think I've ever seen a disparity like that at a with two high-level teams going at it.
I have.
No,
because when Barcelona was at their peak and Man City was at their peak, no matter how good your team was, including even Real Madrid, they'd sit back and wait for opportunities to counterattack, and that's pretty much what Liverpool did. And as you say, smash and grab. All you need is one good chance, and they found it, and they win. And that's why I keep on saying that it doesn't matter what the possession statistics say, because
that's wrong.
Liverpool played their game.
That's wrong. Absolutely. That's an absolutely false statement. You can't make a generalization like that. I've explained this to you about 1,000 times, Roberto.
I'm not buying your statement.
Well, good.
I'm not buying it. I've looked at this, and teams set up specifically for this, and it's a strategy.
It's a tactic since the late 1800s.
Yes, and I think that to say that they would, somehow that they were dominated because the other team was so superior. They set up for that. They have the ball, and we're going to try to stop you either at the 3-quarter line or the halfway line or inside our halfway, and then we're going to counterattack. And this is what we want. We want you to have the ball. This is a setup. So therefore, I'm not going to say, wow, they were dominated because they were so far superior. One team was so much better than the other. No, I'm not saying that.
Well, they can be thankful for a couple of things. One is Allison. What a keeper, and a crossbar and a post, and you put all of them together and you get a Liverpool win. I want your opinion on this. Let's just spend no more than 2 minutes on this. We got Brad Sims queued up and ready to go, but I have to put in my and Shane, I would like you to clip this if I am at all coherent in the fact that I am just alarmed and not particularly happy by this new IFAB rule. It's another rule that, because the referees can't adequately control a game, we have to put in what is now it hasn't been administered in MLS yet, but it will eventually, an 8-second rule. So let me just explain it with the goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper makes a save. He or she, because it's going to be international, has 8 seconds to distribute the ball. And what's going to happen is the referee from the 4th second on is going to count down 5, 4, 3, I suppose with his hands or her hands, whatever. And if in the event that the goalkeeper does not release the ball in 8 seconds, it will result in a corner kick for the opposition. So the issue is, first of all, no team should be awarded with a corner kick because the goalkeeper holds on to the ball too long. Another thing, there's already a 6-second rule, ladies and gentlemen. There's a 6-second rule. Now, the penalty there, or the violation there, is it becomes an indirect free kick from where the keeper is holding on to the ball, which sometimes results in these exciting, every player is on the line with the goalkeeper. Those are interesting moments. But so we already have a 6-second call that referees never, ever call. They don't call it.
And that's the point, is that it's basically been forgotten to the point of where nobody enforces that anymore, but they want something enforced. And maybe they thought that an indirect free kick at the point of the infraction was just way too severe. So now they're going to give them, an extra 2 seconds to get rid of the ball. And the whole point of this is get rid of the ball. And if not, then it's going to be a corner kick. They thought the rule was way too severe, which is probably why referees basically swallowed their whistle and let players, goalies keep the ball a little bit longer.
Here's what you do, and you don't wait till the 93rd minute to do. It's just like every other player on the field. Warning, verbal warning. That's where it starts. Next, yellow card if you're delaying the game. After that, second yellow, good night. And then goalkeepers would stop holding on to the ball. So I officially despise this rule. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And it just adds on to the responsibility of the referee, who's already got too many things going on. Just call the game, manage the game. If you understand the game, you know when a keeper is delaying the game. Warn him, then yellow, then second yellow, it'll stop. Thank you very much.
No, you can go to IFAB and make that case, but they've already made this decision without you. I'm sure that came up.
I just can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait till the first time it gets called. Unbelievable. They don't call it now, and you're right. It's probably a little too severe, this indirect free kick, and that's why officials are reluctant to call it. But you could still book them. You're still allowed to book them if he's delaying the game.
Well, they do that on kickoffs, so they do it then.
All right.
So,
all right, let's go kick it around, man. So Brad Sims has been president of the New York City Football Club, Roberto, since 2019. So he wasn't around for the first game. As we pointed out earlier, he was an executive vice president of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA, worked in the NBA offices before that. He's a chief revenue officer for the Cavaliers. So he's in a good position for New York City because he's got to balance all these different costs to make it all work. But he's also at the forefront of the 10th anniversary celebration coming up on March the 8th. And we had a nice chat with him. So you want to play it?
Let's go.
Let's go. Here he is, Brad Sims, everybody.
Whenever you guys are ready.
Great. So I'm here with Roberto Abramowitz, NYCFC Views Live, and the president and CEO of New York City, Brad Sims. So Brad, I remember at the groundbreaking, you were intimating and hoping that the schedule would come out the way it did. March 8th, March 15th, 10-year anniversary. So give us an idea of why this is special.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I had a sneak peek at that point in time. Usually, like early December, we're getting the first cut of the schedule. But yeah, we're just talking to the league office about it and said, hey, this is a special date. Our 10-year anniversary is coming up. We had done a lot of work with them around, our crest and the brand and everything. And it'd be some nice symmetry if it works out that our exact 10-year anniversary, we could have a home match. And I'll give the league scheduler additional credit because we really were only mostly focused on the March 8th and the opponent Orlando, and like if that worked out, it'd be awesome. That we played Orlando March 8th, 2015. Play Orlando again, and then they doubled down and gave us New England on March 15th.
Did you put that on their table as well?
No, we didn't. No, they did. That one came about. I think that once they started looking in Orlando, they did their own research, and so when we saw New England, we're like, hey, that is pretty smart. But generally, if you look at our schedule, like every year, I mean, we start with two away and then 2 home every single year. I think I've been here in my 7th season now. So we knew that when you look at Saturdays, it was likely going to be 8th and the 15th. We're likely to be home. In terms of opponent, we were hoping that it could work out for Orlando to be here on the 8th, but we didn't request New England on the 15th, and they kind of did that on their own, which I think is very cool. The symmetry of both of those games.
The fact that you're playing your first 2 games away seemingly every year, I mean, that turns out to be an actual benefit for the team as far as the fans are concerned, right? Because you really don't want to risk playing your first 2 games in like the dead of winter. We've had a pretty bad winter. And then even on third week, it's still going to be like 45 degrees on Saturday. How do you approach that, and what is your feelings on that?
Well, there's 2 sides of every coin. I mean, I think if you ask, players and coaches, do you want to, start away every year? If you look at kind of points per game in MLS for home teams and away teams over the history of time, MLS has one of the biggest home field advantages in professional sports. For any professional football league around the world and for North American leagues, and I think a lot of it is just travel time. I mean, the miles. Think about the miles that we put on in the first 2 weeks. We've actually put on more than 2x. We have the most miles traveled through 2 weeks of the season, and we're more than double second place. And so it's not easy. Like in other countries, in Europe and everything. Like your farthest trip is an hour, 2 hours, and most of our buses, they're not even flights, and so here, flying, 3-hour flight to Miami, 6-hour flight to LA, like that's tough, time change, 3 time zones, like to get adjusted, and it's tough. So if you look back at any team that starts away, you're essentially feeling like you're going to be near the bottom of the table after 2 weeks. And there's a lot of momentum, that goes into these things, which is why it's so important to, Saturday for us to have a great crowd, everyone in the crowd bringing their A game, and giving us that home field advantage, because we get to a point every single year where, like game 3, we feel like it's critical to get 3 points, because we're in the hole after 2 weeks. So it depends, obviously, weather-wise. To your point, yeah, you want to start playing when the weather is a little bit nicer. In the past, we also used to start in day games early in the season. Now with kind of the league schedule and the Apple schedule, there's more of the dictated 7:30 time frame. So in early March, like right now today, it's beautiful outside. If you play an afternoon game, if it was like this on Saturday, and you'd probably rather be playing at 3:00 than at 7:30. But I think our fans are going to be out in full force. We're projecting a great crowd, better than last year based on kind of the pacing of where we are. So I think we're going to have a great crowd, and they're going to bring it. Our team's going to bring it, and we'll get on the win column.
It brings to mind one of your road opponents, LAFC, play at BMO Stadium. And prior to the game, Seth Burton, who's their comms guy, was talking about, and I hadn't known this, that it was built on the site of the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena, where the Clippers and Lakers played a little bit there as well. Concerts, Bruce Springsteen, 2012, and I've got to fit in the Jersey thing, and. What came to mind was that they had to build on that footprint, which is part of why it's such an awesome atmosphere. I'm wondering if you could kind of retell the story, which again you told at the groundbreaking, but in regard to the footprint of the new stadium, and then we'll get an update on the stadium, but just how you anticipate the atmosphere there.
Yeah, I mean, it's LAFC does have one of the smaller, I think, footprints across the league. I think, having it been fresh after the groundbreaking, I tell the story that we were in Cincinnati for the first round of playoffs, and their capacity is 20, newer stadium, great stadium, 25,000 capacity, and they built on 23 acres, and we're going to build 25,000 capacity on 12 acres. And so essentially just like how tight, the confines are going to be, how amazing every seat is going to be in the view of every seat, how steep our supporter section is going to feel like a wall, a wall of fans. The fact that we're in the LaGuardia Fight Pass, so we're height restricted. So we have to keep down. We're restricted kind of on the sides because of the parcel of land, and then we had to build up because we were in a flood zone there. So we had to put 6 to 12 feet of infill to kind of raise the level. So pitch level is where the street level will be is pitch level, whereas most stadiums and arenas you go into across the country, you walk in on a certain level and then you actually go down kind of to court level or ice or pitch or whatever. And so for us, we'll be on pitch level and then we go build up, but we could only build up so high because of the flight path. So it's going to make for just an incredible fan experience where every seat is going to be a fantastic seat.
You feel like it'll be similar to LAFC because the noise level there is.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, I think that they're probably the team and the facility that we've collaborated with the most across the league in terms of best practices, what works well, how to emulate what we consider to be kind of best in class soccer specific stadium in this country, and then for us to build upon that as a foundation and improve upon it.
If I could have one more follow up, Roberto, and then you're on, man. I wonder how closely you track the construction timetable. I think it's 13 weeks in, and whether you're constantly judging when you're going to be able to open this thing in 2027. Can you give us an update on that front?
Yeah, very, very closely. I mean, like on a week by week basis, like, and like we're 3 to 5 weeks ahead of schedule already through like 13 to 14 weeks. I think that some of that you're building in extra time. You don't know, like when we're putting something like 238 piles like into the ground. You don't know for sure. I mean, those go deep in the ground. You don't know what's going to hit. We did test piling like in the fall. We've done some, to try and figure out like, are we going to have any issues underground? But you don't really know until you're in there. And so, and again, we're
what kinds of things might you encounter underground?
I don't want to comment on that. Your Jersey comment earlier. Like you can use your imagination.
Okay. All right.
So
Sopranos.
Right. Exactly. So, and luckily, it's been flying. It's been going, but I think you build time into the schedule for I won't say worst case scenario, but hey, you just don't know. And so, like the underground kind of utility, plumbing and electrical is going in now. Foundation stuff. We're 3 to 5 weeks ahead of schedule on that already through 13 weeks. When you get good weather, we in good weather's on Monday through Fridays. We're not at the situation where these guys are working 7 days a week necessarily. So on the work days, if you have good weather and you can make a lot of hay, and that's been happening so far. So knock on wood, we've been had some good luck there. So yeah, it's a moving target. I mean, every couple of weeks we update. Hey, here's the currently, if everything keeps going according to plan, what the date of completion would be, and it keeps creeping forward.
That's good.
So going back a little bit to the schedule and the fact that you have to schedule your first 2 games away, and now we look towards 2027 after the World Cup. There's been a lot of talk about the fact that MLS might change its schedule and it become similar to Europe. Obviously, there would be a break based on what we've heard, anywhere from early December or mid-December to anywhere to early February, late February. Has there been any adjustment in thinking about the stadium, maybe adding heat elements for the fans in case it really does, that starts late or starts early or ends late, so it's a little bit more comfortable for the environment for the fans? Or has there been any other changes to the stadium because of that thinking?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah, we have a whole work stream going on that now, and trying to identify. I think part of when we designed the stadium originally, we wanted it to be comfortable in all kinds of weather. Because even now, in our current calendar year format, MLS Cup final is still played in December. I mean, we still have very important playoff games in cold weather months in our current schedule. So we wanted to make sure, and to your point earlier, March, we're starting in early March, and hopefully we won't have to start away, when we have a new stadium. We don't have to. We could start at home. And so we were already taking all these things into consideration. I think the biggest one being the roof, and in terms of coverage on the roof for the vast majority of fans. Coverage on the east and west covers the entirety of the stands. Covers on north and south covers almost the entirety of stands. I think just maybe the first 3 rows or something like that don't have full coverage. So that was one major piece in terms of trying to protect from the elements. There's a number of other things, but in terms of heating and those kind of elements, hadn't factored that into our base model. But we have a whole work stream going on now about, hey, if this is to change, and then we know that we're going to have games every year in November, maybe early December, maybe February. How do we make it more comfortable for fans? So heating elements and things of that nature, and also winterization. So I think some of our fans know pretty much the biggest reason why we don't play early is not necessarily because of just it's going to be cold. It's because Yankee Stadium and Citi Field are they're buildings that get winterized because they have pipes that are left open to the elements, and you can't have water and pipes and for the bathrooms and for the concession stands and things like that freeze and break. And so things like heating coils around every single pipe that would have water above ground, below ground, anything that is exposed throughout the entire stadium, which is a significant amount, would have to have heat coils around. So we're looking into that now, and what would that cost to make sure that maybe you don't have to winterize the stadium and it's open. How we have it designed originally is that we would have to winterize, and we would winterize at the end of the MLS season until kind of the start of the MLS season.
So I'm sorry, I was going to follow up on that. So based on all of these things, are you still staying within budget?
Right now, yes. These things that we're talking about, heating elements, would likely be incremental to budget, and it's probably a high 7-figure, low 8-figure kind of incremental investment that we would have to make.
Brad Sims with us, President CEO of the New York City Football Club, and Livia, do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah.
So just to pivot to the sporting side, not the specifics of what players you're looking at and things like that, but I think the questions we get asked.
If you want to know.
The question I think we get asked more often than not is obviously David Lee and Pascal Janssen, they have players that they desire to bring in. But then the budget consideration, and just wondering, I don't know how deeply you could share how it all works, but but your role in approving, like they'll target a player, I'm sure, and then come to you, and then where does it go from there? Yeah. And how does it ultimately get approved, just from a business standpoint?
Yeah, I would say that depends on how significant of an investment. I would say, there's probably decision making from a player standpoint, whether that's renewals of contracts or signing a homegrown or signing a college drafted player or up to U22 investments, so DP investments. So there's a whole scale there. I mean, I'd say there's some where Dave just does it and lets us know, type thing. And then there's, when you're talking about, I think the biggest kind of investments, that's something that obviously that I'm involved in, our finance department, both locally at New York City level and globally at the City Football Group level. City Football Group football operations global team is involved. I mean, all the way up to our ownership, our stakeholders, Ferran Soriano, all the way for the biggest of investments that everyone's kind of weighing in and making sure that that it's a smart investment to help us win games, but also a smart business investment as well. So there's
what's the vision of that? Are you all on a Zoom call? I mean, is it sort of, are decisions made like that?
We have a lot of conversation, a lot of collaboration. This company, City Football Group, a lot of collaboration, a lot of people that are interested in how do we win, but also have a sustainable business model. And I think that's a challenge for us and for many MLS teams. I think us especially as a tenant, and will change drastically when we're in the new stadium, but
and don't have to pay rent.
And don't have to pay rent, and have a building that you have the ability to monetize 365 days a year versus a building 17 days a year that we rent and try to make the best of. So, yeah, it's a massive difference. I think ultimately, I mean, we're a business, we're a for-profit business, and I'm tasked with trying to figure out how do we pay for a stadium and pay for debt service on the stadium and pay for all of our operations and pay for both on the business side, player side, stadium operations side, and not lose money in the new kind of new world order. And so in the current one, it's how do we do it as sustainably as possible given the hand we're dealt. Right. And so
because it's understood because of the situation of the stadium that it's going to be nearly impossible to not have debt. Of course. And so, so we have to look at all these things and try and figure out how do we balance our desire to have a competitive team. Year in and year out, a team that can realistically compete for trophies year in and year out, have a team that our fans are excited about and will support and follow, with being having a economically stable and type setup with how we handle players. And so player sales is a big part of that. Reinvesting, but making the right decisions is that, and it's easier said than done. But I think historically we've been maybe to some of our fans' chagrin, been very patient in the transfer market, patient to find the right players at the right investment levels, and the right players for the team on the pitch, the right players in the locker room. Culturally, it's a huge focus of ours as well. And you got to get it right. There's lots of examples. I don't need to call out examples. You guys can. When you talk amongst yourselves, you'll know the ones that you'll know the examples. But or when we come on and talk about this interview right after.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so many teams that have gotten it wrong, gotten the DPs wrong, and it is a killer. I mean, and not just for one season, for like 2, 3, 4 seasons potentially, because you're signing. So like you got to get those investments right, and then so we have to make sure that we don't miss on those. And I think that we've done a great job over the time that I've been here in terms of being patient, but finding the right fits for the team, finding good people, finding hard workers, people that mesh well culturally. And now we got a new coach also. You add that in the mix in terms of his evaluation of the players that we have, where there might be gaps, where we want to invest, and and giving him enough time to make those determinations, and then working closely with David on that, and then identifying targets and then getting after it. But I think overall, my role, I view my role as like trying to be of support and trying to make sure that like they can help accomplish what they're trying to do, that we do it in a fiscally responsible manner, but we also do it with an eye towards how do we win and how do we lift another trophy or trophies here in the near future.
So when you put all that together, last night we saw Cincinnati tie Tigres, we saw Seattle tie, we saw Vancouver tie Monterrey, Seattle tied their game against Mexican teams. So it's not only competition within MLS, but it's also competition with the Champions Cup, and I'll leave Leagues Cup aside because there's an advantage built in for MLS teams versus Mexican teams, as all games are here. So where does New York City stand as far as spending? Because if MLS has only won one championship, which was Seattle, out of the last, I believe, 18 that have been played. So if MLS wants to be able to compete on an even level with Mexican teams as far as these things are concerned, the league has to spend more. So where does MLS, or where does your team stand as far as stretching the budget and pushing the envelope?
I just would say what I just did. We have to strike a balance between being fiscally responsible, especially in our current world, where we're a tenant and we have restrictions on our abilities to generate revenue, to how do we stretch what we are able to do to get the best results possible and to compete for trophies. And we've done that. I mean, if you look at the last 9 years, we have 7 of the last 9 years we've made it to the conference semifinals or better. We're the only team in the Eastern Conference to do that. We're one of only 2 teams in the MLS to do that, Seattle being the other, also at 7 out of the last 9. So I think being a consistent and really what it comes down to is, you saw last year, I mean, number 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the East all lost in the first round of the playoffs. Like, you get to the playoffs and almost anything can happen. And so our goal every year coming in is like, how do we have a team that we feel confident can be a playoff team, ideally towards the top end of the playoff bracket, that's peaking at the right time late in the year. I mean, you saw what happened in 21 with us and 22, where really kind of hit on all cylinders towards the end of the year. And then you put yourself in a position to be able to compete for trophies, and knockout competitions, things like that. Like, anything can happen. You can get good luck, good call, bad call, injury, no injury, etc. But you put yourself in those positions. And I think that I'm confident that every year, and this year will be no different, that we will be investing in the club to the level that will allow us to do that and allow us to put ourselves in that position at the end of the year.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much.
There was Brad Sims joining us today. And any massive takeaways from that, Roberto?
It's pretty much what we've been saying all along. I mean, when you talk about the budget for the team and what they're looking to do and the type of player that they're trying to bring in and how much money they've got to spend, obviously things are going to change once the stadium is built. And but if you look at the history of the team, they've been extremely competitive based on the way that they've been going doing business, and they're not about to change it right now.
That's absolutely right. In his presser, he added a point where the opening 4 years with the big names, specifically via Pirlo and Lampard. Pirlo making an appearance in the last couple of weeks here in the New York City area to help kick off the big 10th anniversary celebration. But he was part of that dollar glutton of aging superstars. Now, David Villa still contributed mightily, by far still the all-time leading goal scorer.
Lampard had some pretty good games. Lampard had 12 goals in his,
he had 1 year. He had a year. No, he had a year. Yeah, he had a good year. And Pirlo had 16 assists 1 year. So it's not like they, they weren't playing on one leg, but the point there was they went a different route, geared towards, and it's pretty well known now. And when they go U22s and DPs, when you claim, you can go 3-3, and New York City is a 2-4, 2 DPs and 4 U22s, and that's probably until further notice, that's the way it'll likely be, to discover the youngsters, bring them in, develop them a little bit, and then sell them for some big bucks.
Although there is a thought that they could change it in the summer and decide to go 3-3. So
that
you
is
never, you never know how it goes.
Yeah, because if all of a sudden somebody falls in your lap or you figure something out, it's nice that you can change that. So, all right, good stuff. Thanks so much to Brad for hanging with us for that amount of time when he had to come on and also do another one. So,
and thanks to Olivia for
yes,
taping that for us. And I think it looked pretty good as opposed to what we normally do.
Actually, I just wrote her during it and said, can you send me the specs on this equipment? The audio and the video are exceptional. Seriously.
Yes. I know it is. And that was not 4K. You can do up to 4K with that little recorder. Yeah, it's very cool.
That might be another $400-$500 though, probably, right?
No. It's that recorder is capable of doing 4K, like your telephone is too. Your iPhone is capable of 4K recording as well. The thing is that the transfer size of the files is a huge difference.
All right.
So you don't want to be doing 4K unless you absolutely need that capability, and you don't need it for a 2-on-1 interview.
All right. So I still want to end the show with something that I thought was fun. I wanted to bring up Serie A matches in the United States. We'll hold this in abeyance next year because that's been discussed by the president of Serie A. And then a halftime show at the World Cup final in 2026. I might stop watching soccer if that happens. They can't do that.
Did you watch the final of Copa America, or did you decide to leave when Shakira started singing?
I did not hear Shakira or watch her or anything else.
I did, and she did a great job.
I don't care about that.
It's entertainment.
Halftime in soccer
it's going to happen. They can make money.
Halftime is 15 minutes. I don't give a crap about the money.
It's not going to be 15 minutes anymore for the World Cup. Not for the final.
Well, it has been in the past. Why would you change it?
I know. Well, they're going to change it.
Well, they shouldn't, because it's sacrosanct. Halftime and the amount of time between the first and second half in soccer should be sacrosanct. I don't care what they do.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of things that have been sacrosanct in sports, and they go by the wayside. There's a 3-point shot in the NBA now. There's designated hitters in baseball. There's a runner on second in extra innings in baseball.
Well, that's ridiculous.
It all changes. Hockey has overtime, and now it's 3-on-3 overtime. And if that's tied, it's a shootout. It is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know why you bring up all these other sports. I am telling you,
because they were all sacrosanct, and they cared nothing about it because it was all about money.
You play the entire year with a rhythm of 15 minutes at halftime. You're coordinated. You're conditioned. And then now you're going to say half hour.
The NFL does the same thing except for the Thanksgiving Day games. The first two only, really. The one in Detroit and the one in Dallas.
There you go, mentioning another sport again. I don't care.
I'm going to because these comparisons are valid. And where do you think they got the idea, by the way? Where do you think they got the idea? You think Johnny Infantino has seen a Super Bowl?
But I don't understand your reasoning. I don't care where he got it.
I'm just saying that it's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's change, and as much as we'd like to see things stay the same, sometimes it's just not going to happen.
I want to see the teams come and warm up right in the middle of Shakira's performance.
It's not happening.
Yeah, right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it. A little.
They're going to have to go kick it out in the parking lot.
Play a little 1-2 off her shins, and you get it back, and you just kick it off from there. So. Final.
They'll be able to go in someplace in East Rutherford and warm up while Shakira or whoever else is performing, maybe Taylor Swift.
Did you read this? Final thing. For all the New Yorkers, this is pretty interesting, I think. They haven't figured out how they're going to do it. where they have to close down this Times Square area. They're going to have a big boxing card and fight in Times Square. It's going to happen on May the 2nd, a triple header. It's being organized by Oscar De La Hoya, who's a famous boxer. I didn't know he was also now a promotions guy.
He's been a promoter for years, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. And Ryan Garcia, who apparently is a well-known boxer but got into some trouble. I guess he's out of trouble now, and he's going to – but the biggest thing is they don't know how they're going to do it. It's going to be in Times Square on May the 2nd. So that might be a destination.
And by the way, it's not going to be weather permitting. They're going to fight if it's raining or not. So and by the way, it'll be broadcast on Netflix.
And it's what De La Hoya said was he's expecting 500,000 people for free. And then after that, Simon and Garfunkel are going to come in and do a concert. So there you go.
That would be great. Paul Simon's going back on the road, by the way. What is he, 84? He's going back out on the road.
He's in his 80s, man.
I hope that at some point, they would get back together again.
80s are the new 70s, and 70s are the new 60s, and we go on and on and on. All right, Roberto.
Here's hoping we get there.
Shane, thanks for hanging in there, dude. Thanks to Brad Sims. Hope you enjoyed that. This thing will be put back up on. If you've watched us live, it's back up there in a few minutes on our social media, so you can look back. But so we have our broadcast coming up Saturday against Orlando City, 7:15 pregame show for both of us. Spanish for Roberto Abramowitz, myself, English, Glenn Crooks, and this has been NYCFC Views Live. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.